Our first speaker today, besides the singer, is a resident of Tucson, former resident of Tucson. He was diagnosed 6 years ago in 2009. He's held many fundraisers for organizations such as the National Parkinson's Foundation, the APDA, the Michael J. Fox Foundation, and the University of Miami. He's been in the fitness industry for 40 years, and he's currently planning a bike ride from Vancouver to Mexico. Yeah, have fun. I'll take pictures. Moreover, Roy's our friend. So I'm excited to introduce him and honor, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Roy Rodin.
I've been here before. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, let's do the video first. Only 1% of the people in the United States ever get Parkinson's. And less than 1% of the people with Parkinson's actually get involved on an active level of doing something about it, which is getting involved in research, which can eventually bring us closer to a cure, hopefully in my lifetime. These people have to find out, these people have to know that they can do something, and they can do something bigger than themselves. And I'm excited about that. The exposure. And I get to do something important. How often are we afforded that opportunity to where we can do something bigger than ourselves? I'm blessed. I'm blessed. Ready? Okay. Firstly, I want to thank the Bear family, and Joey, and Carl, and thank you for attending tonight. My name's Roy Rodin, and this is my story. It all started with a thumb twitch in my right hand. And when I made mention of this to my general practitioner in 1999, he said they might have something to do with Parkinson's, but it's nothing to worry about. And since he didn't make further mention of it or refer me to any other doctors, I thought nothing of it. I mean, after all, if there's something to do or say, you'd expect your healthcare provider to do or say something, right? You got wrong. About 10 years passed, and now it's 2009. My motor symptoms are worsening. I'm losing my voice. My right arm stops swinging naturally when I walk. My right foot drags, and my tremors are getting so bad I had difficulty eating without dropping my food before it got to my mouth. Well, my newest general practitioner referred me to several neurologists who were absolutely clueless. I was witness to a lot of misdiagnosis, shrugs, speculation, which almost led to unnecessary surgeries. It was finally my GP's nurse who recognized the symptoms only because her father-in-law had it and mentioned the possibility of Parkinson's, and I should see a neurologist who specializes in movement disorders. And after a few visits with the doctors over at the University of Miami School of Medicine, voila. Now my symptoms finally have a name, Parkinson's disease. And now I can finally combat, or at least confront, the disease that's affecting me and soon my family and friends. Let me ask you a question by show of hands. How many people here have Parkinson's? Wow. How many people here are caregivers? Care partners, I should actually call it. Thank you very much. Anyone here ever get involved in clinical research of any type? One, two, many of you. Wow, that's fantastic. Actually, there's a much higher percentage here than nationally, because nationally, less than 1% of people with Parkinson's ever get involved in any type of clinical research. Everyone here has heard of Alfred Nobel, right? The Peace Prize winner? Okay, does anybody else know what Alfred Nobel was famous for? He invented dynamite, exactly. Look it up, it's true. Anyway, here's a story about Alfred. His brother passed away, and when he was reading the obituary in the newspaper, they made a huge mistake. They printed that Alfred died instead of his brother. Yeah, so now here he is reading his own obituary, and what does the press focus on? that he's the guy who invented dynamite. He hated the fact that he was going to be remembered for the application of something used principally for destruction and warfare. This affected him deeply, and it was at that point he decided to change his legacy. He decided to create an international award and grants that would honor, fund, bring awareness to the greatest scientists in the world. And I'm here to tell you, it's not too late to do something to help. Whether it's through a clinical research volunteer, or through donations now, or through your estate, it's never too late to be a hero. We, that is all of us with PD, were recruited in a war we didn't enlist in. And as I look out in this room, I see people shaking and stiff in walkers and wheelchairs, and we're losing this battle. So start a legacy of your own. And if we're the soldiers, then certainly the colleges and universities across the world are our ammunition for their research and our help. And it's a war that we can win. I volunteer for 4 clinical research programs myself, and I'm here to tell you there's nothing like the feeling that you get when you realize that you're unselfishly doing something to help your fellow man. Shortly after my diagnosis, I was invited and attended the Clinical Research Learning Institute in New Jersey by the Parkinson's Disease Foundation. The purpose of this 3-day seminar was to learn about the facts and standards, both legal and moral, that are put into place by the FDA as strict instructions to be practiced by the researchers, universities, as well as private institutions. It was there that I learned about deep brain stimulation. There were about 40 people with Parkinson's, flown in from all over North America to attend the Institute, along with dozens of doctors, clinicians, pharmacists, and other healthcare providers. Of course, speakers. Maybe 100 in total who were involved one way or another with that seminar. Anyway, as we were mingling a few minutes prior to the start, I met a gentleman at my table who I introduced myself to. As I was standing there chatting with this guy, I noticed he was asymptomatic. And that is, he exhibited no tremors, no dyskinesia, no bradykinesia, no slurred speech, dystonias, nothing. So naturally I asked him if he was a doctor. The answer is no. A speaker, perhaps? Again, no. Now I'm confused. What are you doing here? He smiles back at me and says, well, I have PD just like you do. I said, what? You gotta be kidding me. I've never seen an on period like that before. He explained that a couple months prior to the conference, his symptoms were worse than mine. He told me that his tremors and restless leg syndrome had progressed to the point where he and his wife had to actually sleep in separate beds. And then he told me about DBS, a relatively minimally invasive procedure that was performed on him. He explained that the procedure was FDA approved and extremely safe. For me, it was a real eye-opener and literally what the doctor ordered. Following my completion of that seminar, I now had a direction in which to focus my efforts. I made it my charge to educate people living with Parkinson's and their caregivers about the opportunities to participate in clinical trials that will hopefully treat, or better yet, eradicate the disease. I became a clinical liaison for the Parkinson's Disease Foundation immediately after that conference. 2 years after my diagnosis, my tremors and other motor symptoms had progressed to the point where, in order to keep them in check, I was taking about 30 pills a day. And almost all of them said may cause confusion, do not operate heavy equipment after taking these pills. Yeah, that was an understatement. I had to stop playing Monopoly with my wife and kids because it was too fast. Monopoly. Really. It was right about that time when I asked my neurologist if DBS was right for me and if I should consider it seriously. He told me that by coincidence he was going to ask me the same question on that same visit. He explained he believed I'd be a great candidate for the procedure and referred me to a neurosurgeon. Several tests, and a few months later, in July of 2012, bingo, I'm the bionic man. At this point, I was already involved with Miami, University of Miami, and the Michael J. Fox Foundation, as well as the National Parkinson's Foundation, and had hosted several fundraisers. So now, what do I do next following brain surgery? Naturally, plan a 5,000-mile bike ride across the country with my wife, Lynn, to bring a greater awareness to PD and to raise funds for clinical research. And I'm pretty sure I was still under anesthesia when we planned that ride. If I would have had time to consider the conventional wisdom and odds against me in completing this challenge, I probably would have given in to common sense. But what the numbers failed to show was the strength of the human spirit to achieve, to be larger than some of our individual parts, I refuse to leave my legacy as a victim. From the embryonic stages of prepping for the ride, family and friends expressed a great deal of concern for my safety and health. I mean, here I was, a 54-year-old man living with Parkinson's, barely out of surgery, not anyone's definition of an endurance athlete, who just several months prior made his dogs very happy because I dropped most of the food before I got to my mouth. It's true. I ensured them I'd be okay because DBS had addressed most of my motor symptoms, and although I'd never ridden a bike more than 20 miles in one sitting my whole life, I knew what I was getting myself into. Boy, I lied through my teeth. I also knew at this point there was no turning back. Starting on a journey we left Miami on October 31st and towed my 1969 Airstream and picked up my brother-in-law along the way. It was his job to be our SAG driver for the rest of the trek back to Miami. The drive only took 4 days to get to our starting point in Seattle, Washington. The ride back took 4 months, and I wouldn't trade that excruciating and wondrous experience for anything. In those months it took us to complete the ride, we rode through hailstorms, gale force winds, where we actually had to stand up on our bikes to ride downhill. Sandstorms, dangerous slick mountain terrains, and fight with speeding logging trucks in the fog, trying to share the same winding roads. But we also got to see and explore this beautiful country up close from coast to coast. I got to see and pick from pomegranates and apple trees for the first time in my life in Washington. We saw salmon swimming in clear streams in Oregon, majestic mountains from both over and under the clouds in Northern California. We got to see seals and whales in Central California, bike through the vineyards in Napa and Sonoma, rode with a local bike club in New Mexico where we cruised through miles and miles of pecan groves, traveling through Frisco. The mayor actually proclaimed a day after me. We hit Louisiana just in time for Mardi Gras, and it was an amazing trip. The climate didn't always provide us with the optimum circumstances for biking, but what the weather did to challenge us, the angels we met along the way kept us going and reminded us of our purpose. Thanks, Carl. With the help of an extraordinary PR staff, we used the ride as a tool to get in front of any microphone, camera, or reporter that would have us. We were honored to stop and speak in front of support groups, city councils, hospitals, rehabs, to those with and without PD we met along the way. The more people we spoke to, the more we were inspired by their stories of hope. And as it turned out, it was the same people we set out to inspired us. And it absolutely restored my faith in mankind. Oh, they were incredible. We spoke to people with PD about their options, whether it was DBS, meds, or specific exercise routines, which is probably the best thing someone can do with Parkinson's can do to slow down the progression of Parkinson's. Anyway, there's a gentleman named Mark who attends a gym back in Miami that I operate, who lives with Parkinson's. When I first met Mark, he used a walker to get around the gym. Well, Mark educated himself on diet and hired a personal trainer to help him exercise. Following a strict exercise routine, we all just about fell over ourselves when one day, about 6 months after starting his regimen, Mark strolled in without his stroller. He only used a walking cane and it helped him get around. Well, about 3 or 4 months later, everyone in the gym just about cried when Mark came in without the cane. He was a remarkable man. And I'm not saying that his results or mine are typical of PD. It's a designer disease and everyone's challenges are different. But what I'm saying is not braggadocio to impress you, but to impress upon you the importance of how a healthy lifestyle can do to improve or at least slow down the physical progression of Parkinson's. Even before the completion of our ride, I decided that what I was going to do was devote the rest of my life to improving the other lives affected by Parkinson's. My wife worked with Dr. Becky Farley in Tucson, whose research-based studies in Parkinson-specific exercise had, in my opinion, made her the preeminent leading authority in Parkinson rehab, but also resulted in the culmination of her first book on the subject, Power Moves. After 40 years, I've semi-retired from the fitness industry, where I was employed from everything from a personal trainer, a manager, and owning a fitness management consulting firm. I now work proudly as a volunteer ambassador for Medtronic DBS division, and I talk to people about my experience with the device. I'm still active with the National Parkinson's Foundation, the APDA, Michael J. Fox Foundation, along with my partner, Mick Beeman, we also started a YLPD group in Tucson, which I'm proud to say is still going on. Mick, take a bow. I'd also like to address the importance right now of attitude in maintaining a positive frame of mind and coping. I also hear the word hope used often. At one speaking engagement, I remember one man saying it's all he had. Now, please don't get me wrong, I like hope. I believe it's important to have hope, a sense of humor, and a positive attitude, but it's not all we have. Appreciate the things we do have, the loved ones and friends who care about us, laughter and the days without pain. Count your blessings. I want to thank my medical team at Medtronic for every step I take without tripping, to be able to eat without dropping my food, to be able to shave without worrying about giving myself a tracheotomy, to confidently be able to go out and sing bad karaoke, and lastly, for making it possible to continue my efforts to bring an awareness to PD. I'd like to end tonight with a story my wife told me that struck a chord. There was once a huge forest fire, and naturally all the animals were running away from the blaze, except for one single hummingbird. Kept going back and forth into the fire with a drop of water in its beak. A fox saw the bird's efforts and said, "Little bird, what are you doing? I mean, you're not going to help the fire by yourself. What do you think you're doing?" Little bird looked up at the fox and said, "Just my part." Speaking for the 1.5 million people in the United States diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, not including the millions who have not yet been diagnosed or misdiagnosed, I want to thank you for doing your part. We, those of us gathered in this room, are so truly blessed. How many people in the world have the opportunity to leave the world a better place than we found it? I urge you to be that hero, that hummingbird in your own lifetime. As for me, I'm going to continue to fight the good fight. I'm going to fight for me, I'm going to fight for you and my kids and my kids' kids. And I promise, as long as I have a voice, I'm going to keep on speaking to those people living with Parkinson's who can't speak for themselves. Make no mistake, we are literally in for the fight of our lives. But I refuse to lay down and quit. I will not be a man who lived and died, did nothing significant. And I'm just getting started. Thank you very much.